Nice to meet you. Thank
And
you
you're
for
a
having
very
me.
impressive person.
Oh, thanks.
So what do you hope to achieve from this point on?
Well, I mean, I think the goal is how do we use like one really specific story, right, to underscore like a larger universal truth,
Right.
right? And again, like I'm privileged to do this film. How many people can do that? Not a lot of people.
Well, that's why you have to be the voice for all those people.
Well, I'm just one voice,
Right.
and trying to figure out again, like how do we go to places that don't really know what Filipino is, and they're wondering, what do you mean you're from the Philippines, or why do you speak English like that,
Right.
or I think what's really needed more than anything else right now is humanity.
Right. So what
You know?
drives you? What drives you? I mean, obviously, you come up against so much resistance. What keeps you going?
I mean, I think growing up in this area, I was surrounded by so much generosity, right? You met Pat Hyland.
Yes.
Ever since I was a
understand
kid,
Right.
these quote-unquote strangers treated me like family. And in some ways, what I do is in honor of my grandparents and my mother, and also in honor of them, of Pat, and all these people who invested in me when I was nobody.
Right. But you
And-
were always somebody.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, like, like they were the ones that treated me like one of their kids,
Yeah.
as an American kid,
So what does this tell you about the world? I mean, in general.
Well, I think the need of the need for empathy, right? There isn't anybody that you couldn't empathize with once you get to know what their story is.
Right.
And we have gotten so used to hating each other and like dividing and
Judging.
and I mean, I try to be as least judgmental as possible. Right?
So do you feel that you're going to be the person that will create some reform?
I am one person that's going to do that, and we're going to do it through the film. We're going to do it through Define American and through the film. Yeah.
Well, I know you have a whole gang of
I know,
people
which is
waiting
crazy.
on
I don't know
you.
what they're waiting
So
for,
thank
but
you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll stay in
Very
touch.
nice to meet you. Thank you. Kiefer, I think, is here. Mrs. Kiefer, where is she? So this is where it gets really crazy, because like my whole life, I think a lot of it is in the audience. You're probably wondering, yes, I have accepted my mother's friend request on Facebook. So this wasn't the film that I wanted to make. Ideally, I was going to make a different film. I had a version of this film that didn't even have my family in it at all. Because once you make something public like this, it doesn't become yours anymore, it becomes something else. And in some ways, this is a film that I needed to make. But what's the purpose of that? And for us, at Define American, I hadn't come from this community. Graham Greene had a quote once when he said that there is a moment in everyone's childhood when a door opens and lets the future in. Where I'm from, there have been many, many doors opened and many, many moments that have been created in this community. And 2014, for us at Define American, is the year of the ally. The fact that undocumented people like me can't be the only people coming out. The fact that we need more Jim Strands and Pat Hylands and Rich Fishers to come out. These allies that support people like me. Right? We need you to come out and speak up and be a part of this movement with us. A few weeks ago, just as the congressional members went to their holiday vacation of Define American, we launched a new campaign. There isn't really a symbol for the immigrant rights movement, so we came up with a symbol. And the symbol is the pledge. If you look at your postcards that you got in your chairs, this pledge, I've been pledging allegiance to this flag since I was a 6th grader in middle school. And then when I was at Mountain View High School, I realized that the flag didn't really belong to me. But undocumented people like me keep pledging to it. So we actually created a video at Define American in which we asked 30 undocumented people to pledge allegiance to this flag. So I'm from Mountain View, the same city that has a day worker center. If you can actually put the lights back up, there's a woman here that I really want to introduce, Maria Marquin. Where is she? Maria, please come up. There's going to be a way of Maria runs the Day Worker Center in the great city of Mountain View. And if you don't know about it, please Google it. Please support it. It's in Escuela Avenue. I'm proud to be in a town that has a Day Worker Center. I'm proud to be in a town full of allies, full of people that understand that this issue is way more than about Republicans and Democrats and about politics, right? So now what can you do? Actually, tonight we are launching for the first time our text messaging campaign. We're launching today, because we're in Mountain View, so why not? If you look behind, if you text pledge to 97779, you can do it now if you want to show support for this. Because what we're actually asking people to do is to take a different pledge. And this is actually the first time I'm doing this. I'm going to read to you this pledge that we're using from a group called Sworn Again America. And we're using the Pledge of Allegiance to ask people to take a different kind of pledge, which goes like this, and this is in your postcard. I pledge to be an active American, to show up for others, to govern myself, to help govern my community. I recommit myself to my country's creed, to cherish liberty as a responsibility. I pledge to serve and to push my country when right, to be kept right, when wrong, to be set right. Wherever my ancestors and I were born, I claim America. And I pledge to live like a citizen. Citizenship for people like me is more than a piece of paper. As far as I'm concerned, I'm an American. I'm just waiting for my country to recognize it. And we need your help at this crucial time, in this state of moral crisis, to speak up. So thank you so much again for having us, and I look forward to your questions. I think there are some we're going to have right now. So thank you.
Great. So we do have some questions, and if you have others that you'd like to bring forward, please do so. So the first question is from a person in the audience who said, I brought an undocumented pal tonight. What's your advice for him to get documented? He's too old, like you, for documented.
Too old. I'm about to be 33 in a week from today. What's the advice? So as you can see from the film, I've come out twice in my life. I have nothing more to share with you. Totally done. But it's one of those things where you can't really force people to come out. One of the things that I had to do when all of this happened was meet with about 31 lawyers. All of them told me not to do it. All but one said not to do it. But I would encourage people to seek legal help first, because I'm in an incredibly privileged position to be doing what I'm doing. Right? Every day, the Obama administration is deporting about 1,100 people every day. Can you imagine? By the way, just today, one of the women in the video was actually arrested and detained, Alejandra Sanchez. And within, I think, 4 or 5 hours, thankfully, because of petitions that just read on Facebook, she was released. This is happening every day. So, if you're undocumented, seeking legal help is the first thing I would do. Of course, the question becomes, how do you get citizenship, or how do you legalize your status? And that's where it gets really complicated, right? There isn't a line for people like me to stand on. Although right now, because of the Defense of Marriage Act getting repealed, I can actually marry my way into citizenship. So if you know anybody, I haven't had time to filming, so that would be kind of cool. 30 and over, would be good. But yeah, so this is why we really need immigration reform to happen, right? There's so many people waiting. And all these things like DACA, for example, it only addresses, a certain percentage of the population. I hear from so many people who are like, quote unquote, aged out. And it's horrible.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have another question here. How do you appeal to those firmly opposed to immigration reform? And what is the most common counter-argument to immigration reform that you have heard?
That's the thing. So, the scene in Alabama with the guy who was a little drunk? He was actually a lot drunk. But what was fascinating to me about that scene was the moment he heard me out, he was like fist bumping me. And then the moment I heard him out, one of the things that I really had to learn as a journalist, you're forced to do this, is you have to listen to people, right? And people are so pissed off that they want someone to blame, right? Like when that man, we never got his name, when he says, I'm a contractor, I'm a blue-collar guy, if I want to charge $15, $20 to fix the roof, and these people come in and want to charge 10, right? That's a perfectly valid point, right? And we need to recognize that. So then it becomes, I remember I did a class, a lecture class at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And the class that I lectured in was a dirty jobs class. And most of the students are the sons, the grandsons of farmers and contractors. And it's not that they hate me, they just don't know me, right? That's why I think, quote unquote, confronting people, the biggest gift that journalism ever gave me was the gift of empathy. There isn't anybody I wouldn't talk to. And I think all of us, in our own ways, have to do that. So whenever I've heard people make an argument about, you're illegal, right? You're a criminal. And then you talk to them about why the fact that being here is actually a civil offense, not a criminal offense. You talk to them about the fact that there isn't a line for me to stand on. You talk about the fact that I've been living here, paying taxes. After they hear all of that, then you're on the same page. But the problem with our country right now is we're actually not talking to each other. We're just talking at each other. So with Divine American, hopefully, we're planning pretty deep engagement with some Tea Party members in the next few weeks and months. We're going to take this film. I have gotten really comfortable being uncomfortable. And so we're going to go to some uncomfortable places. But that's precisely where we need to go. My Spanish teacher, Senor Kilmer, is sitting right here.
So this person has a question, but first they have a few things they would like for you to know. And the first is, thank you so much for your courage and determination. Which is not really a question for you to answer, is, will you come show documented at Mountain View High School? So
Sure.
but here is their real question. What do you and other dreamers specifically propose regarding immigration reform and legislation?
So let me take the first point. I was so late to this thing. In the beginning of the film, you saw those young people on YouTube, right? And this is where social media, a dear friend of mine, Steve Grove, is sitting here somewhere, who was the head of YouTube News and Politics for a while. That's how we met, in Mountain View, actually. And YouTube in particular, if you type undocumented on YouTube, there's videos spanning from years and years ago of these young people just coming out on YouTube, telling their stories, right? And so in some ways, I've actually been really, really behind. In some ways, I was actually a coward for many, many years. I was too comfortable making a good salary and having a good life that I just didn't want to have to deal with this until I had to deal with it. So they're the ones that paved the way for something like this to happen. So I just want to make sure that I say that. Second point, what do we want? You're hearing a lot about special pathway to citizenship. There is not such a thing as a special pathway to anything. Most people don't really know what comprehensive immigration reform means. It actually means people like us should have a driver's license, because you know we drive. You know we do, right? And it's in our own shared best interest that people have insurance and that, you know, people can know how to drive safely and all of that, right? You know we're at your schools. You know we go to the same church, right? So, to me, boiling down comprehensive immigration reform, having a driver's license, having a passport, having a worker's permit, right? That's what it means. But it also means having a way, a roadmap, for people like me to become American citizens. Not a special path. Not like a special little pass. Not amnesty like Reagan did it, right? As far as I'm concerned, I have paid so much taxes, I should be a Republican. I paid so much taxes. And by the way, people don't know this. You can't employ me because I'm undocumented, but I can employ you.
And I'm looking for a job.
So this film that you just saw is a film that's a project with by American that is a production of Apo Productions. Apo in my native language in Tagalog means grandchild. So in honor of my grandparents, I called it Apo Productions. I formed a company as an undocumented person and actually employed American citizens to do this film. So I'm a job creator. And that is in honor of the entrepreneurial startup quality that I come from, Mountain View, you know? So, can you imagine how many, I've met an undocumented mechanic shop owner in Houston. He actually Facebooked me and he was like, oh, a lot of my employees are actually against illegal people, and I've been meaning to tell them, you're employed by one. But this is the kind of stuff that we don't even know about. So people like me just want to be able to get in some sort of a line, right? To have some sort of process. Tell us where to stand, we'll wait. And I actually think is what I find really fascinating is in some ways, undocumented people like me are actually showing Americans what it is to be Americans. That it's something you earn. That it's not something that you just born into. Right? And I think that's really, really important.
So here's a very practical question for you. Financially, how do you live now that you can't work at the Post?
So I have a business. And thankfully for me, when I told some, when you do something like this, you really get to know who your friends are. Like the first 2 days after the New York Times published the story, the people that ran towards you and people who run like against you. And one of the people that did is actually a guy named Sean Parker. You probably heard of him. He was an Napster guy. I interviewed him when I was profiling Mark Zuckerberg for the New Yorker. And so Sean writes this long email about, hey, that was ballsy. You took a risk. Anything I can do to help, let me know. Oh, okay. I'm doing a film, man. Can you help fund it? And he did. So I have been surviving, thankfully, because of investment of some people, but mostly, again, as a business owner. So people can actually contract me out as a writer and as a filmmaker. So isn't that really, really interesting how many people are actually doing that we don't even know about? So, but there was a tough time when I didn't really know, because all of this right now, by the way, is gray legal area. Like lawyers, I learned pretty early on that this is like having cancer. I mean, I don't mean to minimize cancer, but it's like you have to listen to like people's diagnosis of what you have, right? Like nothing is ever really black or white. Everything is like, is it legal? Is it not? We don't know. Why don't we just keep pushing? And all I've been trying to do from the very beginning is kind of disrupt this thing. And I think the goal is to just disrupt what people think this issue is. And again, I would have never thought in my whole life that I would be an entrepreneur, that I would have employees. That's exactly what's happening.
Great, thank you. Now this is a question from all of the mothers in the audience. Why did you not want your mother on Facebook?
the hardest decision in the film. You know, I wanted to, when I was younger, I really blamed her a lot. I did. I didn't understand why she did what she did. And it was a lot easier when I got a little older to just send her money every month, right? Like send the money and then like I'm done. No photos, no letters, just money, done. And you know, Facebook to me, I know how some people think it's like a narcissistic thing. For me, it's not. It's a real thing. And I remember when she sent the friend request, I like stared at it. And the moment I accepted it, I knew that my life would open up to her. And I wasn't ready for that. And this is the hard stuff, right? And even in this film, can you imagine editing this film? Like there were times, thankfully my editor, Sabrina, there were times when I would be like underneath the table because I would be crying. And she'd be like, come on, we have to edit this thing. So I'm facing her like you faced her, right? And I just want you to think, I'm just one privileged person telling you this thing. Can you imagine how many people every day go through this? Right? And so in a way, not accepting her was a way not accepting myself. And I didn't really realize how broken I was until I saw how broken she was. And then my goal from the very beginning was to show what a broken immigration system does. And this is what it does. Let's take away the border. Let's take away Latino, Asian, Black, white. This is what it does. So that's why. But now that we're actually, we talk maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. It's getting better. Can't wait to see her. And there will be no camera. No camera will be around when I finally meet my mother.
And when will you meet your mother?
I don't know. When is Speaker Boehner going to get something to the House floor? I don't know. Look, like, I'm in a privileged position where I could, my struggle is, I want to, you saw her. I mean, can you imagine she's been waiting all these years, and I don't know how long I can keep doing this. There's a part of me sometimes when I'm like really kind of down, I'm like, maybe I should just go to the airport and just get on a plane and leave. But I can't, because that would mean that I can't do that. So hopefully she'll wait a little longer. My Lola, thankfully, my Lola is here, by the way. Don't worry, before we started performing her curlers, I showed her this is what will happen.
We want to see Lola. Where is Lola?
Lola, stand up, Lola, stand up.
Stand up, Lola.